putting stuff on your lines of credit, you need to make sure that it makes sense. So, you have a home equity line of credit or personal line of credit. Congratulations, you're one of everybody. I'm gonna use that to buy a snowmobile, right? Because the rate is lower. It is and it isn't. You need to understand how lines of credits work to make sure that you use it properly. All lines of credits, or almost all, are variable rates, meaning it is prime plus plus plus. Meaning you are at the mercy of what's been happening for the last 6 months, that if I put an asset on there, I'm gonna be paying more and more and more interest. So what I budgeted for isn't necessarily gonna be the payment that I'm gonna end up making. So it is important to note that putting stuff on your lines of credit, you need to make sure that it makes sense. Also, what is the biggest difference between a regular loan with a amortization, meaning a start and an end date? So if I go and I buy a Ford pickup and I finance for 60 months, I make 60 payments, that is fixed. Versus the line of credit. The line of credit does not have an end date. Does that sound fishy? Does that sound like it's designed for the banks to make money? It is, 100%. The lines of credit are essentially a never-ever plan. What do I mean by a never-ever plan? The minimum payment that you need to make on a line of credit is interest only, meaning you don't need to pay any capital. Yay! Meaning, if you do that once or twice in the year, the amount of interest you're gonna pay is astronomical because you're never paying down the capital. So while you may think you have a great rate on your home equity line of credit or on a personal line of credit, the actual interest that you'll end up paying is gonna be drastically more because of human nature and because of the way we're disciplined and because of the way that, hey, I bought this and I had a plan to pay it over the 5 years, but a year later something else happened and there was a squirrel here and something else happens in life. I have to pay stuff, I have bills, I have Christmas, so I'm gonna do that minimum payment here and there. It's deadly, guys. As soon as you start using lines of credit, especially for depreciating assets, meaning something that I buy that's worth less and less and less and less, and I'm not paying that off, it will affect. So don't get mesmerized by what you may think is a better rate. Having a fixed rate loan, meaning that the rate's not gonna change and there's an amortization. There is a timeline, so meaning every single payment that I make, I'm paying down that original debt. That makes way more sense than putting it on a line of credit where it's just too flexible and human nature makes it where we don't do that. Think about it this way. Is the bank there as your best friend? Or are they there to make money? Right, okay. So, do you think they're looking out for you by giving you that low rate? Or do you think they're banking on the fact that you're never gonna pay down what you put on there? Here's another way to think about your line of credit. Have you ever had a debt on your credit card that you find never goes away? I put $2,000, $3,000 on there and I always owe $2,000 or $3,000. That's because the credit card repayment is the same as that line of credit, where I am simply responsible to pay down the interest that's accumulating every month. Meaning I don't necessarily need to make payments on the capital, making that a never ever plan as well. So if you have ever in your life had a credit card that you just had a hard time shaking that balance, you gotta understand that it is gonna be the same concept on the lines of credit. There's a reason banks push them, because they make way more money. But logically, any vehicle that you're gonna buy, a car, a truck, a boat, a motorcycle, all that stuff, you should do a fixed term loan and finance it properly. Don't put that on a home equity line of credit. Don't put that on a personal line of credit. There's other things that tie into those as well, especially the fact that they're variable right now. A lot of people are gonna be shot in the foot, especially if you put big toys on there that you were basically just affording. You're really gonna have a hard time. The other thing too is when we have loans specifically for a vehicle, there's protections that we can have in that loan. There's gap protection, there is life protection, and there's a few other things that we can make it so that if anything happens to you or the vehicle in question, that the loan itself doesn't become a problem. Versus a line of credit, that's not necessarily true. It's not really linked with what you're buying. Essentially, if anything happens to the vehicle or happens to you, there's other protections that need to come into play to take care of that. So make sure that before you buy a vehicle and you think that you have a great thing going on a line of credit, sit down and do the math. The fact of the matter is, most people who put stuff on a line of credit, almost all end up paying more interest.